Reyes for 20 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And gentlemen, I too appreciate the hard work that both the CIA and the FBI do on behalf of our nation. And I know from firsthand experience, as first as a Border Patrol agent and then as a chief in the of sectors along the U.S.-Mexican border, I always prioritize working with my colleagues, in particular the FBI, the CIA on a more infrequent basis, but we always considered that we were tentacles of intelligence out there. If I had 1,000 agents out there, there were 1,000 potential eyes and ears for the intelligence community, and so I was always happy to do that. I want to start out my questions by asking both of you an opinion, and that is, does the way that Congress conduct its oversight hearings, in your opinion, does that make a difference? Our ability to do oversight, is that something that you feel is beneficial? Well, I have my own opinion. That's why I'm asking it.
Well, I certainly have enjoyed and welcomed the opportunity to address oversight committees, but particularly in closed sessions. I must say the reason that I'm here truly is to represent my people who've worked so hard and try and give a face to the Central Intelligence Agency's counterterrorism effort. My own personal observation would be that in this interaction that we could achieve the resources that we're looking for. And I believe that when we've met on this subject before, and I know, Congressman, you've come out and had access to a lot of the things that we do, I think that is very informative to both sides, where you get to have a closer appreciation from your oversight committee role into what I do, which is classified hard things. So I think this interaction can be very good. In our case, it certainly has been.
Mr. Watson?
I think the oversight is appropriate. We welcome that, believe it or not. I've been up here a lot. Some sessions are a lot easier than other sessions, but at the same time, I think there's an obligation on our part for us to explain to you what's going on, because let's face it, I mean, resources and budget and you're representatives of the American people. You need to understand what we're doing and try to do. I welcome that, and I have no problem with that, even in times when it becomes, in closed sessions, not as comfortable as other times. But that's okay.
Well, and the reason I asked that question is because I always, particularly as a field chief, at times frustrated because more often than not, we didn't get the opportunity to testify about issues that we thought Congress needed to know, including resources, staffing plans, and those kinds of things that are, you know, they're the bread and butter of our ability to carry out our mission, regardless of what that is, whether it's monitoring the border or doing intelligence work or prosecutions or whatever that is. So in that context, let me ask, is there a, when the declaration of war back in 1998 was issued against Osama bin Laden as the #1 target, stands to me as, based on my experience as a field chief, there are two things that are critical that you do. First of all, you've got to understand what the challenge is and how you can meet it with the resources that you have. But secondly, and most importantly, is understanding the challenge and recognizing what it is that the director or the commissioner or whoever is prioritizing the issue for you, is what do you need to make sure that you are successful in carrying out that mission or that task. So my question is, first and foremost, in your respective agencies, did we, in your opinion, understand the scope of the challenge of going to war against Osama bin Laden and what he was capable of doing against this country? And secondly, did you put a plan in place to carry out that? And more importantly, and Mr. Watson, you talked about the request for additional positions and funds for the agency that came to Congress, but was there a comprehensive staffing plan put together that we can look at that says, here is the declaration of war, here is what we have and how we will carry that out based on what we have now, and here is what we need? Is there such a document that we can have?
The declaration of war was issued by the DCI. We were well aware of the threat posed by Osama bin Laden and al-Qaeda in 1998. As a matter of fact, he was indicted in November of 1998 for his crimes. From December 98 forward, that was the #1 priority for the counterterrorism program in the FBI. That crossed many fronts. One is, where is he, and working with our colleagues and maybe close, and I don't want to go into this. I mean, we actively pursued with our colleagues from the agency, and probably more so with the agency, what are we going to do about this? And so that's going on.
There is a plan.
Yeah.
There's a plan that we can see that you developed when the declaration was issued. Because I asked the staff if anything had been reviewed.
I don't
like
think.
that.
I'm sorry.
Well, because I asked the staff, did we, across all the pages of information that they've reviewed, and they informed me that they had not seen anything like that. That's why I'm asking.
Did we have a war plan, a 5-paragraph ops order issued on Osama bin Laden and al-Qaeda? Absolutely, we did not at that time.
Well, if not, why not?
Because
it seems to me like if you're going to issue out a directive.
It was the #1 priority that was addressed through each field office, through discussions with the SAC in relationship to their annual report that they sent in, and in our guidance that we gave back as to what we were trying to do with al-Qaeda. There were other priorities as well. I mean, it was one.
No, and I understand that. I'm just interested in.
To answer your question specifically, can I give you a document? Here's what we're going to do. Those types of issues came up in the director's report as to exactly specifically what we were going to try to accomplish in the next 120 days or the next 180 days across the board. Osama bin Laden, al-Qaeda, PIJ, Hamas, those sort of things. That's where that is found.
And what about the second part? Did we identify resources that were going to be needed in order to be successful in carrying out this mission or this task?
Specifically directed at that mission, probably not broken down that way. Specifically directed at raising the capability of each of our field offices, what we needed to get there, absolutely.
But given
budget formula, I'm sorry.
But that was given all the priorities that you've mentioned. So nothing was actually put together that would zero in. Again, what I'm trying to get at is making sure that we understood the potential threat that Osama bin Laden meant to this country, and therefore the priority of making him the #1 target. And I believe you said he was put on the top 10 list.
Yes, in the spring of '99. I'm not dancing around on your question, but to understand and to know what the threat was, absolutely. Do we have a flip chart that shows exactly this week, this is what we're going to do, next week we were working in that progress, toward a specific document like that? We don't have a specific war document. That's the answer to your question. But we had plans.
Okay. Mr. Black?
After 1998, with the declaration of war from the director, we certainly carried Osama bin Laden, his al-Qaeda organization, as our #1 priority threat. We did indeed develop plans. It is indeed a document, and it is indeed very classified. but it was comprehensive, exacting, and it was a global engagement strategy.
And by being very classified, it's not available for us to review, or is it?
It's classified before the Oversight Committee. I believe you're on the Oversight Committee.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And earlier, or last week, we had General Scowcroft, who testified before the committee that said that the safest place in the world for a terrorist was to be in the United States. And one of the FBI witnesses supported that by saying that we know that terrorists are among us, they're poised to strike, and that, in his opinion, we hadn't yet devised and I think he specifically said, we don't yet have the best system designed to ferret them out. What do we have today, both from the FBI and also auxiliary to that, support from the CIA, to identify those that are here and to ferret them out? I don't want specifics. I just want to know what kind of plans we have, either to come up with a system or...
Let me comment on that statement. We have a constitution here, and our form of government is the freest in the world. And if you're talking about a safe harbor for people, we have a safe harbor here for justice and fairness. And do we want to go to a country or become a society that ignores that? And so I think, I mean, it's easy to generalize and make statements like that, but it's also, we're vulnerable because of our freedoms. And I don't think any of us ever want to change those freedoms of what we represent, not only inside the United States, but to the world. What we were doing to identify those people is very clearly when we have specific information that we can open a case on, we do that. And we try to identify that, working with the CIA, working with pocket litter, working with document exploitation, working with individuals arrested, and arrested becomes a prevention because they provide information that you wouldn't get anywhere else. And a good example of that is the individual Wadi El Hajj that was convicted in the East Africa bombing, so a U.S. citizen who wouldn't tell us anything until he was later prosecuted and was facing the bar of justice. So I think there's a blend here between the intelligence work and the law enforcement work as to how do we get those people out. It's a difficult process. It's not something the FBI can do by itself. And the process here and the threat is of those individuals that have gone through those training camps since 1996 that have scattered around the world. Where are those people? Are they living in Texas? Are they living in Montana? I don't know the answer to that, but that's why we have to join forces and try to identify those people.
Okay, but putting it in context, Director Mueller has told the Joint Committee that the FBI's #1 priority is now prevention of terrorist attacks. So obviously the issue here transfers from prosecution to prevention. What, at this point, what is the FBI doing to have this change in strategy or this change in direction?
That's a fair question.
In the context of what you said.
I'm sorry?
In the context of what you said.
Okay. I think that's a fair question, and that what we're doing is any threat information or any thread of information that comes in regardless, if it's an address or if it's a phone number overseas that pertains to the United States, is run down absolutely fast as we can, as quick as we can. Don't lose sight of the fact that prosecutions are an aid in preventions. And so are we abandoning prosecution? Absolutely not. But prevention is the #1 priority. And prevention might mean that we take individuals and charge them with credit card fraud as opposed to the only way that we can deal with them. Or take them, if they're out of status and they're illegal immigrants, take them off and arrest them or charge them for being out of.
Can we assume that somebody in the FBI is working on a plan that will tie this change in strategy that will come to Congress with this is the challenge that we're facing, these are the things that we want to accomplish, and this is what we need in order to accomplish that. Is that being worked on now?
That's absolutely right, but remember also that we were moving toward prevention in '98. And so this whole process has been started, and certainly we can do that.
Yeah, and I would, and you know, I say this with all due respect,
Sure.
based on my experience when we were tasked by the commissioner of what resources it would take to control the border or to manage the border. We were all charged with coming up with staffing surveys that we had to justify at what level we could expect to maintain control. And without that, frankly, coming to Congress asking for more people and more money, it's not going to happen, especially in an environment like there is today. So that's why I'm pursuing this line of questions.
Yes, and I think that was Senator DeWine's point for budget justification. Absolutely.
Mr. Black, again, getting back to the global plan that you were talking about, that you developed against Osama bin Laden, is part of that plan. Was there an assessment made of the plan's potential for success to either capture or eliminate Osama bin Laden, and also in following up with what I was discussing with Mr. Watson, is a component of that plan additional resources? In other words, identifying the challenge and telling either the director or Congress, in order for us to be successful here, these are the additional resources that we'll need by way of support from Congress. Is that part of that, those two things?
Yeah, what I'd like to do on this is that I've already stated that this particular plan is available to you. Because of the classified nature of it, I would suggest that at your soonest convenience that this be provided to you as a member of the Oversight Committee, and hopefully it'll answer your questions.
Oh, well, is there an assessment in there of the potential success upon implementation of the plan?
There are various aspects of the plan, and the plan is essentially a global effort. So I don't have the plan in front of me, so I don't know which aspect of geographical area and function.
Okay. How about does a component of that also address resources, additional resources, to be able to successfully carry out that plan?
I believe I recall this a few years ago. I believe it did. I'm not absolutely sure because I don't have it in front of me.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. One other issue that I'm curious about, and I'm curious about it because the comment was made in prior testimony by one of the FBI agents that in the context of the request for FISA authorization that come up here to headquarters, that it was my impression, based on his testimony, that you have these requests come up to headquarters, and then there's, to some extent, some lobbying going on to rise the individual FISAs from different offices up to the top of the ladder in order to be considered. So, given the fact that we have seen that Al-Qaeda can carry out very well coordinated attacks against this country, and it's not beyond the realm of possibility that simultaneously they could be planning operations in the Northeast, the Southeast, the Northwest, the Midwest, wherever. Is there a component, an analytical component, that looks at these FISA requests that would connect those kinds of threats, number one, and number two, in that system that evaluates the FISAs, I want to make sure that we're not in a situation where one is considered at the expense of others. So can you describe what takes place when a FISA request comes up here?
There are a large number of FISA requests that are processed through FBI headquarters. Once a month, a meeting is held with OIPR, the Department of Justice office that handles and processes those requests that are eventually get to the judge with an FBI agent. Those are prioritized, they were discussed, which priority first in the FISA process, which one. If Detroit comes in with one, and I'll make this up, that involves
Whatever.
Park or 17 November or whatever, one of the 30 terrorist organizations on the list, and at the same time Kansas City has a request for Al-Qaeda, those things are prioritized, and they're prioritized on the basis of what our priorities are within the division. But you also have to understand that on an emergency basis, those FISAs can be approved within a very short period of time, probably less than 2 hours, Michael? 2 hours that we've run FISAs on an emergency basis.
So was it a fair statement to make that there is some effort to lobby to get your FISA up based on what the priority is for that respective? Or is there somebody looking at the whole?
They're prioritized by the section chief in conjunction with OGC, who understands what our priorities are in the counterterrorism arena. And so if you have limited resources, unless it's an emergency and those go through, if you have limited resources within the prioritization,
Give me 40 minutes.
that's where they end up.
All right.
They're prioritized. And so, you know, the JRA or Tamil Tigers, you know, I mean, not saying they're not important.
But there is somebody that's
yes.
looking at the big picture
Yes, sir.
when those things come in.